welcome back to Fresh this term. It's a shame that we can't meet back at church tonight and we have to go back to Zoom Fresh, but it's amazing that you've still decided to come anyway. I know how hard it is for me to concentrate on Zoom, so I'll keep the talk for tonight a bit shorter than usual. I want you to think about what it is that you love most. What is it that you just cannot live without? Think about it for a moment, and once you have an answer, I want you to write it in your Zoom chat. A number of famous people have said the phrase, maybe sung the phrase, "You don't know what you've got till it's gone." Maybe during lockdown, you've realized how much you love something now that you can't have it. So go ahead, type it out. See if you've written the same thing as your friends. Maybe you've written the same thing as your leaders. There are so many good things that we could write that we love. Food, travel, holidays, technology. But if I had to guess, I think a lot of you will have written family or friends or maybe both. And that's a great answer. And I think Jesus would agree. We should have this deep love for our friends and family. In John chapter 15, verse 13, Jesus says, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." We love our friends and family so much, maybe even more so now that we're in lockdown. But I want you to think about this. Who are the people that we have fallen out with the most, fought with the most, let down the most? Often it's our closest friends and our families. It's definitely the case for me. So how do we explain this? How do we fail to love the people that we love most? How do we get love so wrong? This term at Fresh, our theme is God's love and us. Each week we're going to look at a different topic and we're going to ask the question, how does God's love shape the way we view this topic? And to start off the term, we're going to look at our love. How does God's love shape the way we view our love? So let's figure out what our love is first. Human love. It's such a broad concept. It has so much meaning for everyone. Everyone has their own definition of what love is. It was only a few years ago that we had the whole love is love movement, which I think makes this whole thing even more vague, because you can take that statement any which way you want. But no matter how you define love, I think human love has two universal characteristics. So firstly, human love is limited, and secondly, human love is flawed. So firstly, as much as we would like to think that our love is unconditional and unlimited, it isn't. Romans chapter 5 is a great example which shows how our love is limited, but God's isn't. It says, "Very rarely would anyone die for a righteous person. Though for a good person, someone might possibly dare to die. But God demonstrates his own love in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us." So what the Bible is saying is that our love tends to be limited to the people that we think deserve our love. The passage says that it's rare that anyone would die for a righteous person, which just means a religious hypocrite. Though for someone we think is good, we might possibly dare to die. But even that is wishful thinking. All of us would like to think that we'd take a bullet for our family, take a bullet for our friends, but how often do we just hang them out to dry when, we're threatened with detention or threatened with, being grounded? Human love is conditional. It's limited, but God's love is different. While we were still sinners, still at our worst, Christ died for us. Now, the second universal characteristic that I think human love has is that it's flawed. And as much as we would like to love our family and friends perfectly, often we don't. And the reason behind that is sin. Last term at Fresh, we looked at the beginning of the book of Genesis, which is where sin first entered the world. Sin is where we rebel against God and reject him, and we reject the way that he's commanded us to live. Last term we learnt that no one is exempt from sin. every single person that has lived, that is living, that will ever live, is tainted by sin. This has consequences on the way that we live and the way that we love. It means that when we should love those around us, sometimes our anger takes over. Sometimes our jealousy takes over, or our selfishness, and we end up hurting them instead of loving them. So, no matter how you define love, human love is limited and it's also flawed. On the other hand, wherever human love fails, God's love is completely perfect. God's love is unfathomable, which means no matter how hard you or I or even a Bible expert can try to describe God's love, we just can't do it fully. Here's an illustration which you may have heard before, but I think it's a really helpful reminder of how great God's love is. Picture this. You're at the beach going for a swim with your friends. It's a little hard to imagine this during lockdown in winter, but bear with me. So you're swimming in the ocean and all of a sudden you're caught in a rip. No matter how hard you swim, no matter how much you fight against the current, you just can't stop yourself from being dragged out to sea. So you've got no energy. All you can do is flail your arms above your head. And then all of a sudden, a hand reaches out and grabs you, and the lifesaver pulls you to safety. Maybe that's how you picture God's love. But if that's the case, then I think your idea of his love is too shallow. Let's imagine a different scenario. It's school holidays, you have weeks of free time, you're going to go camping with your friends, you've got your Ps, so you've trekked it into the middle of nowhere in a four-wheel drive. But then your car breaks down. You've got no mobile reception, you're stranded in the bush. But then some locals are driving by and they see you, you're lost and helpless. And even though you're a complete stranger, they drive you back to their property. They give you clean, fresh clothes. They cook the best food that they have for you. And they put fresh sheets on and give you the best room to sleep in. That's incredible love. But even that illustration is too shallow to describe God's love for us. Yes, God's love rescues us. He provides for us when we're so undeserving, but it goes deeper than that. God's love is unending, unconditional, and unfathomable. Before you started this video, you would have read Psalm 103, and the writer puts it this way: "The Lord is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in love. He will not always accuse, nor will he harbor his anger forever. He does not treat us as our sins deserve, or repay us according to our iniquities. For as high as the heavens are above the earth, so great is his love for those who fear him. As far as the east is from the west, so far has he removed our transgressions from us." That's completely different from human love. It's unconditional and unlimited. It's not flawed, it's perfect. It's rescuing, providing, sacrificial, adoptive love. Our memory verse from UFC sums it up so well. Romans 5:8. "But God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." God's love is not conditional upon how good you are, your ethnicity, your sexuality, or your gender. God showed his love for us when Jesus died to save us, when we were still at our worst. There's only one appropriate response to this kind of love. Come to Jesus and accept it. It doesn't matter if you call yourself a Christian or not. You need to come to Jesus, admit your sin, and accept the unfathomable love that God offers you.